Okay, I think I've told y'all before about how I take green onions when I get them at the store, and what's left over I just poke them in the ground. So here's my decrepit kind of looking flower pot. So what we're going to do is just cut some of these off. I can't cut and catch with the same hand. Hey, I did pretty good. So we're going to cut these off. This is what we're going to be using in our next recipe, but I just want to show you where they're coming from. They're literally grown in my backyard. Hey friends, I'm Tanya, and today I want to show you a different taco sauce recipe. This is called Pancho Chartreuse dressing. Now Pancho's doesn't call this Chartreuse dressing, but I'm telling you the color, I know my colors, and this is Chartreuse. It turns out such a bright yellowish green that, you know, you can't help but name it that color. So the history behind Pancho's is that I was raised in eastern Arkansas, just on the west side of the Mississippi River that divides Arkansas from Tennessee. There's a town called West Memphis. It is in Arkansas. Memphis is in Tennessee. West Memphis has a restaurant, or had a restaurant, named Pancho's. Now this, I don't know for sure, but I can't help but think that the chain restaurants all started from that one restaurant. And when I say it's a dive, it's a brick building, but that's about all I can say from it. I don't know how the ceiling kept from leaking. It was so dark in there, you could not see your food. As a child, I was almost terrified to go in because I couldn't see anything, especially if it was bright outside and then you walk into the restaurant in the middle of the afternoon. I was just absolutely blinded. It is so dark, but rumor has it that at one point, some couple had sat at a booth. They got up to leave, and as the waitress was bussing the table, they noticed there was a rattlesnake in the booth somewhere. I'm guessing on the floor somewhere. I don't know if this story's true, but I promise that would not surprise me one bit. I'm telling you, it was dark in there, and it was an old restaurant, but it never ceased to amaze me, the line of people just waiting to get in. The food was always fabulous. I didn't exactly know what to pinpoint it to when I was a kid, but it's definitely this taco sauce. I'm telling you, it is just funky, and it's weird, and it's good. It's mustard, but it's sweet. It's just bizarre. But people that come to my house, if they're from this area at all, and I say, if we're serving tacos, of course, and I'll say, do you want some Pancho sauce? And they'll look at me kind of funny, thinking I'm talking about the prepackaged, commercialized Pancho's cheese sauce that they sell in the refrigerated section of a store now. But when I show them that it's this, they'll ask, where did you get this? Like I'm some sort of, you know, some kind of narcotics dealer or something, because not many people have had this outside of the restaurant. So I'm here to share this with you. Now keep in mind, the original recipe for this does call for sugar. I made it with sugar for years. I've transitioned over to honey. I like it just as much. I don't find it to have the same flavor, but I find it to have as good of a flavor to me. And being used to honey now as much as I am, it is totally fine, but the sugar version is just fine if you want to use sugar. But if you want to lower the glycemic index and have actually health benefits to it, then by all means go with the honey instead of the sugar. So I'm going to be using an immersion blender, but if you do not have an immersion blender, a regular blender is just fine. I would not recommend going anything beyond or less than a regular blender like a Ninja or a KitchenAid or something like that, because you do need to chop these green onions up to where they're almost unrecognizable. You don't want a chunkiness to it at all. It has to be super smooth. So that's why I'm using the immersion blender. It will get it chopped up good. So we're going to start with what I have in here is a half a cup of mustard. And this is just organic yellow mustard. Just use what you have. I wouldn't go with a Dijon. It might change the flavor up just a bit, but if you're not familiar with the dressing, you wouldn't notice any difference anyway. So I'm starting with just plain yellow mustard. To that, I'm going to add a half a cup of honey. I started to use this honey, but I think I'm going to use my other honey because since this is not cooked, it actually has health benefits to it. Normally, if it's a cooked product, I'll use the just cheaper version of honey because there's no health benefits if you heat it up that much anyway. Whoops, I better turn around so I can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, half a cup of honey. So this is raw honey. This will have several health benefits to it. Not as much as if it were local raw honey, but still, I kind of save that for my honey chocolate milk that I drink in the morning. I'm kind of stingy with that, but this will be just fine. Now, I don't use quite as much honey as I would sugar just because honey is actually sweeter than sugar. So it's just shy of being a half a cup of honey in there. So, but if you're using sugar, go ahead and use a half cup. To that, we're also going to use a half a cup of, this is organic extra virgin olive oil. Let me find my half cup mark here so I'll know what I'm doing. One-third of a cup of white vinegar. Again, this is just plain white vinegar straight from my laundry room. Not only does it have the tanginess from the mustard, it also has the tanginess from the vinegar as well. It's such a good flavor, I'm telling you. If you make this is actually good enough to put on just a green salad, like good greens, and then real flavorful tomatoes, carrots, cucumbers, whatever you have, onions. This is a good dressing to put on that too. To that, we're also going to add a teaspoon of dried oregano. Just oregano, you can see from the label there. I buy it in bulk at our local health food store. And it doesn't have to be a health food store. There's other stores that sell spices in bulk other than those. Okay, I'm going to give this a little bit of a stir just to get it all mixed up before I put my green onions in there. Now, like I showed in the video, I think I've showed it. If my husband has incorporated it into the video, you'll see that I went outside and chopped these from my green onions growing in my flower pots. That honey is so heavy it has a tendency to go right to the bottom, so I want to get it all mixed up in there. Okay, I'm going to let you see how yellow this is at this point. That is some bright yellow dressing right there, but it's going to turn a little bit more green because I've chopped up these green onions. And this takes, I've written down 4 green onions, and be sure and cut the white parts off of them. You do not want the white part, so if you're growing these in your flower pot or your flower bed or your garden, just chop the top of it off. The onion's going to keep growing. It's kind of a perpetual food source right there, but you don't need the white part, so you've left the root part in the ground to keep growing more onions, which I find pretty handy. Now I've brought these onions in and I've washed them real well in the sink. I wash them with soapy water, so if there's a bug in it, it's actually gonna drown. That's just all there is to it. I don't want to eat a bug, so I make sure those are washed out. It doesn't have to be hot water, just a little bit of soap in it to provide a surfactant so they don't survive the water. All right, hopefully this will all fit down in there. It normally does. This is not a cooked dressing, so this goes together pretty quick. Don't worry, I'm not sticking my hands inside where the blade is. I'm just poking the onions back into the side holes there. Even if it came on, it would not touch my finger. I'm not that dumb most of the time. I had a friend tell me the other day, I watched your video of making something, and they said, we were so nervous watching you cut those somethings with the mandolin cutter. And I was like, I've never cut my finger on the mandolin, but guarantee you I will someday, and I'll go, I should have not done that. But I used the guard right after that, right after I turned the camera off probably, so there wasn't too much to worry about. Okay, let's give this a stir again. All right, we'll unplug our immersion blender. And the chunky parts, I'm just going to leave those hanging on that immersion blender because I don't want them in my dressing. Obviously, they were parts that just needed to go down the drain or they wouldn't have hung on like that. All right, I wish you could smell this. I wish you could taste this, but I most of all hope that you'll try it. But I want to give you a shot of this. This is just the greenest stuff. It almost looks like, let me turn this camera up. This looks like one of those funky green smoothies that people always say, oh, these taste so good, but I can't see it because I always think it's the Pancho's dressing. Okay, all right, that's a good look at that. Now this, let's see, this makes about 2 cups, as you can see from the measurements on the side. So you can store this in the refrigerator in a jar, label it Pancho's dressing, Pancho's chartreuse dressing, and put it in the refrigerator. Use it next time you have taco salad or tacos or nachos or a sandwich or a salad or whatever. And I hope you enjoy it, and I look forward to sharing something else with you real soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.